With the basic version of Cascadeur, we can only export rigs with 120 bones, so I can't export the entire rig here. I'm going to delete some of the bones that we're not using, but also know that you can download the finished Cascadeur scene and start animating right away. You don't have to do this, but I'm showing how I did it. So under rig tools, I'm going to go into pose mode, and I'm going to start selecting using these buttons. And I know that I'm not going to use the wings, the attachment bones, or the volume bones, or the hind, or the tail. So I've selected all those, and I'll go into edit mode and just hit the delete key, and then I'll select everything that's left and see how many bones I have. 107, so we're below the threshold. That's good. Now I just will select the mesh, marquee select everything, and export as an FBX. I don't need the leaf bones, and that's going to add to the bone total, so we don't want that at all. They're not going to be helpful anyway. Alright, so we're not going to load any of these, although you can actually retarget from this or that, and there's a retarget map available for those, so if you just want to get started with that. But the benefit of using this technique here is that the initial starting pose is in the T pose that's ready for Second Life. But again, you don't have to do this. I'm just showing how it's done, and I know what goes where, so I can just pretty much drag and drop these. Let's color right, shoulder right. So you'll just keep doing that until you've mapped all those dots, and you can do the hands as well, but I've already done that, so I'm going to show the finished product. The program actually crashed. It did something goofy that it didn't expect, I guess. So I'm just going to open up that file. That's not it. I'm going to drop it in from somewhere else. I can find it. The partial rig. Alright, so I'm dropping this in from a file explorer thingy. Alright, so I'm just going to do a simple animation real quick here, and then we're going to pull that into Second Life. So I'm going to do go to frame 35 just to make it apparent what's going on, although I'm going to do a kick, so it shouldn't take more than a fraction of a second, but still. Now you'll see that snapped back. Okay, that's because I don't have a keyframe to absorb the transforms, and this works a little differently than other 3D applications, but it kind of makes sense. Move his head towards the apparent opponent. Alright, I'm not going to do anything fancy, so just leave it like that. Now you'll notice that this pops, and you just need a curve, interpolation curve. I'm going to use Bezier clamped, and that's ready to export, so let's do that. I'll export it as an FBX and pull it into Blender. File, export the entire scene. Replace that. I'll go over to Blender and import it. Alright, so we have our FBX here, and you'll see that it's not in a T pose, which is fine because its rest pose is actually in a T pose. So we can derive the rest pose as a reference frame from that. And Bento actually has an interesting tool to get that done. It's under animation. reference pose features and create reference from pose. Create reference pose. If you did reference from this pose, then it would do a reference from that pose. We don't want that. We want it from the T pose. So it inserted a key and moved everything over. And you need that in order for Bento to export this properly. Now, since we started out with the proper bone names, and I'll prove that here, we only have to do a match map. We don't have to create a map or use one of the existing maps. I'm going to just select a bone, and you can see the name is correct for Second Life. So for my character tools, retarget motion, I just click match map. I'll give it some distance so you can see it working, and action. And when I scrub the slider, you'll see it all works fine. So now let's just export this. Animation, anim export features. I'll give it a priority of 4. I'll loop it just for testing and export it. And we'll go over to Second Life and check it out. Okay, so that works.